airline captains, well, coming out of the pandemic, travel demand was so pent up that consumers rushed back and the airlines didn't have the capacity to do the trip. So for instance, American Airlines over the summer said that they had to park 100 airplanes because they couldn't find enough pilots to fly them. And it's at the regional level. So what you've seen, in the summer is PSA, Piedmont, Envoy, which are all American airline carriers. They've bumped their pay grades, to really try to keep pilots there. The other trouble is that it's hard to, becoming an airline pilot is a long pathway. So even if they give these packages, it's going to take some time to find those people because you still have to go through the hourly time building to get to those levels.
So they've got that 121 experience, but they even have to have more experience to actually get to the airlines. Yeah. So this isn't necessarily trying to go recruit college kids and incentivizing that. We talked to Sam Weigel a couple weeks ago about some of the struggles for the regional carriers and how it's so much different than when he came up. So how is it different today than it was even 4 years ago?
Well, if you do compare it to the past, this is probably the best time to be a regional pilot because with these pay packages and the benefits that they're offering, it's never been better to be an airline pilot compared to the past. But they still have to deal with, we've seen in the summer there were like travel disruptions, or just figuring out experience between the crews. So in a sense, it's never been a better time to become an airline pilot. You still have to overcome the hurdles to get there. And so, yeah, and it's also playing out in that there's a quick flow to the major. So not only can you get to a regional pretty quickly, you can also end up at a mainline carrier much faster.
So previously it was a really in-demand job, really lucrative. You end up eventually getting a great schedule. You don't have a great schedule at the regionals per se compared to at the airlines, but now it's because they're flowing all of these people straight up into the major carriers, the regionals are saying, where are all of our pilots?
Exactly, and so in this deal that Piedmont offers, it's a 2-year deal, so pilots sort of have to stay at Piedmont for 2 years. But Piedmont, being a regional for American Airlines, they have a contract in place that a flow contract in place. So those pilots still have the opportunity to flow to mainline carriers.
So they can get the $100,000 bonus. They can flow through, still flow through. They're not stuck at the regional level. They can still flow through and build time while they're there. Why are you and I still on this?
Right.
Why aren't we going to the airlines?
Yeah.
Seriously, that is a really great deal. Well, Michael, thanks so much for being with us. I really appreciate this. And anything else exciting coming up for you?
Well, I mean, what we should pay attention to is how this will affect business aviation. Because airlines and the way airline pay pilots compared to business aviation departments is very different. And so that's a trend that we'll have to look forward to over the next year.
Yeah, a lot of these business aviation clients cannot offer $100,000 sign-on bonuses paid up front and cash flow that through. So the labor market, unfortunately, continues to get tighter. Yeah. I don't think that's going away for the foreseeable future. Yeah. And well, we look forward to having you on again next week. Thanks for coming, Michael.
Thank you, Preston.
Awesome. All right, we will be right back.
Leviate Air Group is pleased to bring to market this 2017 Bombardier Challenger 650. With a very low-time airframe meticulously maintained by one U.S. Fortune 50 owner, this aircraft boasts the qualities and freshness of a brand new jet. This Challenger delivers the widest cabin, stand-up headroom, and the highest comfort level available in its class. This pristine and turnkey Challenger will provide immense versatility no matter your mission. Now, sit back and relax as we present to you this stunning Challenger 650.
it's time to take a look at some more news on flyingmag.com. Aircraft manufacturers have delivered 1,841 aircraft so far this year, representing an increase in deliveries across all segments. According to the General Aviation Manufacturers Association, GAMA, third quarter shipping and billing report. This delivery trend also points to an increase in the overall value of the aircraft shipments, the association said in a statement. We'll hear more on this from Pete Bunce later in the show. In a letter to all HondaJet owners in the Jet It Fractional program, CEO Glenn Gonzalez says that HondaJet has cost them tens of millions of dollars caused by AOG and maintenance issues. A new FAA ruling now requires commercial hot air balloon pilots to hold at least a second-class medical certificate when flying paying passengers, bringing balloons in line with commercial airplanes and helicopters. You can find those headlines and more by headed to flyingmag.com, and while you're there, subscribe to the daily newsletter to get updates sent directly to you. We've been talking a lot here on Business Air about what we're seeing in the secondary market. We've got Michael Barber from Leviate Air Group who has some news for us. We're going to talk about what we're seeing in the secondary market. We may be seeing some relief in certain segments, but is it here to stay? Michael, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, great to be here with you this afternoon.
Michael, I want to talk about what you're seeing as an aircraft broker. You're out there talking to clients every day in new and used markets, understanding kind of what their needs are. What's coming to market right now? What are we seeing in the market conditions right now?
So in the secondary market, you've got certain markets that are extremely hot and certain markets that have kind of returned to an inventory status that we saw last year even. Airplanes like the Gulfstream G550, the Gulfstream G650, and the Challenger 300 all have numerous aircraft available in their market segments. On the reverse side of that, the Falcon 2000, the Lear 45, they're extremely hot markets right now that are demanding higher than expected prices. And although we're seeing a calm per se in terms of where that pricing sits, all of those markets seem to be rather strong in how they're carrying across.
So what you're saying is that there isn't any relief for the secondary market in the near-term future. What is going to help the secondary market bring it back to maybe some of the levels that we saw pre-pandemic?
Well, like I had mentioned, there are a few that are slowly getting there. And I think a lot of what's doing that is kind of what you mentioned prior to me coming on with that newer inventory, those new aircraft being delivered to owners. The more new aircraft that can come out, the more people will feel comfortable about selling the aircraft they currently have, which will thus return inventory back up. That's one of the main things we saw back in Q1 and then into Q2 as well. People didn't want to let go of the asset they currently held on to because they were afraid they couldn't find something to replace it with.
How does bonus depreciation play into this equation when we think about transacting, and if you're going to either trade up or even trade down, how does bonus depreciation play in this quarter, and then how's it going to play in next quarter?
Right, so it's huge right now. The 2017 to 2022 bonus depreciation rule that gives folks the ability to depreciate 100% of their asset goes away on December 31st. So I've even received calls as of last week with folks that last minute, hey, can we find something and close and put it in the air and service before the end of the year, because they want to capture that whole asset value to write off. Come January 1, it changes to 80%. And then each year following, we'll see a 20% drop in that bonus depreciation. That's not the standard depreciation, but the bonus depreciation of an asset until we return back to just a standard depreciation that we're used to before 2017. So right now, folks are trying to get in, trying to buy. We're running into some pre-purchase inspection availability with shops, issues with getting into a shop because they're so busy, because folks are trying to get in so that they can use that asset this year and then be able to write it off.
So we're at the 1st of December. What would you say is the deadline for that inspection? I mean, obviously you have to get something flying by the 31st, but in your experience in years past, obviously there's staffing shortages across the country and in these shops as well. If you had to say, when do you need to have that transaction having significant volume, some of your milestones as we look through the end of this month?
So you really need to have all your ducks in a row by the middle of the month. And it's not just the end of the month and trying to get everything lined up, but we're in the heart of the holiday season. And we saw it a week ago with Thanksgiving. Just looking at the aircraft that have come to market month over month. In October, we saw about 30 aircraft a week. October, we saw about 40 aircraft a week. And then we hit the highest the third week in November, right before Thanksgiving, of 56 aircraft came to market, with a dip significantly down the week of Thanksgiving. And we're going to see that same situation at the end of December. And then the FAA closes their shops, so you can't get into get the registration done. And so, yeah, I would aim for the middle of December. If you don't have something in line, contracts written by the middle of December, it's going to be very difficult to close before the end of the year.
So I want to clarify one thing in what you were saying. We're talking about aircraft coming online. What's the cutoff? Is that turboprop and up, or is that just jet and up?
It is any of the assets that you could buy. It could be a PC-12. It could be a Gulfstream G650.
Gotcha. Well, that's really interesting. What are some of the conversations that you're having with these prospective buyers? Are they looking to move up market, or are some of them maybe downsizing and maybe right-sizing, preparing for a potentially softening economy?
I think it's a lot of both, but not necessarily for a softening. But I think right-sizing is the right term. I'm still working with a lot of first-time buyers. In fact, I closed a PC-12 this past Monday for a first-time buyer, a family who has traditionally chartered, and they wanted to own their own aircraft so that they could take advantage of that bonus depreciation this year and then have the asset for their use next year. But there is a lot of right-sizing in this market, and I think with the additional inventory that we've seen come to market, you're seeing more people make those corrections, be it up or down. There isn't necessarily one direction that it's flowing.
If you had a crystal ball, what you're seeing as far as momentum for Q1 or Q2 of next year, do you think that we're going to see a continuation of the momentum in the secondary market, or are we going to see an easing from a few of these different, you've got new inventory coming online, you've got bonus depreciation. Do you think that we're going to experience a slowdown, or do you think that we're just going to continue right on as we're headed right now?
I think you're going to see a continuation of what we've got going on right now. I think we'll see additional aircraft come available, but I also think that the values of those aircraft are still going to maintain where they have been, especially here in Q4. I don't personally think, based on what I've seen and what our market intelligence team gives me, that there's going to be any significant softening, at least in the aircraft valuations for the secondary market.
Michael, this has been an awesome conversation. Thanks so much for coming on BusinessAir TV. We'll have to have you again and see if we're correct looking into next year.
I look forward to it. See you then.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Next, we're going to go to Dr. Scott Denstedt, and he's going to give us what we're looking at for our weather this weekend.
Hey, thanks there, Preston. Last couple of days saw a major storm that moved through the Gulf coastal states and southeast and mid-Atlantic, bringing severe weather to some of these regions. But that system has finally moved off the East Coast, and that's bringing in a high-pressure area that's dominating a large portion of the U.S., basically east of the Continental Divide, and that's going to bring fair weather to most of those regions. The only real gotcha here is that there is some northwesterly flow that is bringing in the possibility of some lake effect, maybe some snow that's downwind of Lake Ontario up into the northeast U.S. But the major player for today will be this weather system. This is it's a occluded low pressure, and that's going to be bringing in the possibility of some heavy snow in some areas, as well as even some coastal convection occurring here in parts of Oregon down into California, maybe even up into Washington state. So let's take a look at the convective outlook, and you'll be able to see that from that perspective here. This is from the Storm Prediction Center, and you'll see that the Storm Prediction Center is predicting the possibility, again, of those kind of probably low top convection, not much in the way of lightning with these systems, but it's a convective process here as well as southern Florida for the day today. And that will probably be driving mostly into the afternoon and early evening hours as we see that convection as part of that next major weather system there. And that's all being driven essentially by an upper level trough that's moving into the Pacific Northwest. You can see that right here. And that trough is pretty intense at this point in time, and that's expected to move further east as it will affect most of the western U.S. By the later part of today into early tomorrow. And then we can look at the overall depiction of the current radar reflectivity throughout the country. And there's not really a lot of remarkable things here. We do have that lake effect occurring down here of Lake Ontario in the northeast as well as southern Quebec. And then over here, a little bit more significant precipitation occurring in kind of the Bay Area up through just a little bit west of Reno, Nevada. And then you also have the kind of the more convective or cellular appearance to these precipitation echoes up here in Washington and Oregon for today. Overall, the forecast radar itself is going to indicate where this is all going to evolve. And you can see that most of that, again, is very cellular appearance here, up here in the Pacific Northwest, indicating a convective process. You'll get a few heavier, stronger cells in that region. And the possibility overall of having a pretty significant rainfall and snow event in many areas there. We'll just take a quick look at the surface wind gusts. There are a few places to be concerned about here, especially in the northern and central plains. That's expected to kind of die down by the afternoon and early evening hours, but we do have at the higher terrain here some higher wind gusts across that region. And last but not least, let's look at the ceilings below 3,000 feet. With those winds, especially in the southern portion here in Texas, those southerly winds around that high, it's bringing in some lowered ceilings in that region. A little later in the show, I'll be looking at the progression of this weather maker in the Pacific Northwest through the day tomorrow and then into the weekend. So stay tuned for that. And back to you in the studio.
Dr. Scott, thanks so much for that update. We'll have him on a little bit later. Coming up, we're going to talk with Pete Bunce from GAMA, and we've got some breaking news for you coming out of Vallado. But first, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Leviate Air Group is pleased to bring to market this 2017 Bombardier Challenger 650. With a very low-time airframe meticulously maintained by one U.S. Fortune 50 owner, this aircraft boasts the qualities and freshness of a brand new jet. This Challenger delivers the widest cabin, stand-up headroom, and the highest comfort level available in its class. This pristine and turnkey Challenger will provide immense versatility no matter your mission. Now, sit back and relax as we present to you this stunning Challenger 650.
When guests come to an event like F3, we know what they want is a chance to show off their products, their swag, and make new partnerships that will last until our next FreightWaves event.
But the problem is there are so many industry events, it can be so hard to find the right one to invest your time and energy in. We at FreightWaves take your investment seriously.
Which is why we've brought together thousands of industry professionals in one city over 3 days to showcase all you have to offer.
Because your successful connections at an event like F3 move all of us forward.
Don't believe us?
Join us in June.
staffing's on everybody's mind if you're at an FBO, at an MRO, at a charter operator, wherever. And you think that you're going to have enough staff, especially in the holiday season, and then you get some texts out. And this meme really demonstrates the feeling that a lot of us have. This is from FBO Memes, which is an Instagram account that has some pretty hilarious business aviation memes. I'll read it for those that are listening. And they said, "Don't worry, we'll have plenty of staff this year." And it's everybody laughing at the dinner party. I know that people are facing staffing problems across the country, whether that's pilots or it's people to maintain their aircraft. So this is pretty funny. I enjoy finding funny memes on the internet. So be sure to follow me on Twitter at Preston Holland 6 or on Instagram, and I will share some of my favorites. We've got some breaking news coming from Volato. We're going to talk about how they're staying on the HondaJet platform and what they see the future of the platform coming. So I have Matt here. Matt is the CEO of Volato. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Matt, so the HondaJet has been in the news a lot recently, announcing the Elite 2, and then recently has come under some scrutiny from some of its owners. So wanted to get your perspective as a leader in this space, somebody who operates a lot of the airplanes and aircraft. What's your perspective of the airframe right now and the company as a whole?
Well, I think the HondaJet's a great platform, and you saw when they announced the Elite 2 at NBAA that they've again improved the performance and the capability of the plane. And it's really amazing how much they've improved in just a few short years with that platform. So we're really excited to be partnered with a company like Honda that has that mindset of continuous improvement on their product. And I think you might have seen in our announcement today that they're taking feedback from us and even using our feedback to make changes to their aircraft. So we're very excited about being able to work with someone who's always willing to innovate.
Tell us about some of those improvements and some of those recommendations that you've made to the manufacturer. How are you helping them evolve their platform to become a better fractional or charter operated aircraft? What are some of the things that you've asked for them to take a look at and maybe improve?
Well, clearly the big improvements that impact us the most that came in the Elite 2 and previously with the Elite S was the additional usable weight. So the S increased the usable weight, and then with the Elite 2, they increased it again, as well as increasing the fuel capacity. So what does that translate to? It just allows us to do more missions nonstop. And for a lot of people, the ability to avoid fuel stops is very important to them. As far as the cabin improvements, they have two cabin layouts. They have a 4-seat with a galley option, or they have, instead of the galley, a 5th side seat. And in our fleet, we have both types of cabin configurations. And we provided a lot of feedback to them on how to improve the galley configuration specifically. And while it's been a little slow, more than a year in the making, we now get to see the first production versions that will be coming in late 23 that have those galley improvements. And I think our customers are really going to enjoy that.
So how many HondaJets are you currently operating, and what does the next few years look like for you as you continue to expand in the platform?
So we have 11 HondaJets in our fleet today, and this is actually going to be a very busy month for us because we're going to close the year with having 17 HondaJets in the fleet. So quite a change in a very short amount of time. And then, of course, this announcement of the additional 25 that we've ordered from Honda is going to start next year. So we are definitely growing out to be a large operator. We do expect to be the largest HondaJet operator, but also we think we're going to be one of the top operators of light jets. And we think that the HondaJet offers a really economical platform and a very comfortable platform for 4 passengers or fewer. And I think that when you look at the data, at least the data that we see says 70% of all private aviation missions are actually 4 passengers or fewer. So we feel like we're going after the largest part of the market.
So what do you say to some of the criticism that there's some maintenance issues with the HondaJet? What have you experienced as a fractional operator? What's your experience been like in your current fleet and the response that you've had from the OEM?
Well, when we first made our orders with HondaJet years ago, they were very transparent with us about what the scheduled maintenance looked like for their jet. And it is less than what you would see from other light jets. So I think there is a fair criticism that the scheduled maintenance program for Honda is not as good as it is with other more mature platforms. But again, they were transparent about that, and they explained to us that as their platform matures, that they will make changes to their scheduled maintenance as well. And as we understand it, sometime in 2023, they'll be actually making some adjustments to that. So we've sort of known what it was day one, and it has met with the expectations that they've set. So, from my perspective, sure, it could be better, and sure, it is different than other jets, but it's not unexpected.
So you guys have had a lot of announcements this year, expanding into new product lines. You started out only as a fractional, recently have taken on full aircraft ownership. What do you think about expanding into different areas of the market? How do you identify that area that you want to go into? How do you plan for it? And then how do you execute on it?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that from the public's perspective, sometimes it can seem like we have a lot of these announcements and they don't necessarily see how they all fit together. But of course, we've planned all these things out well in advance, and it is part of a larger plan. So, for example, we announced earlier in this year a fleet order with Gulfstream for the G280s. And not a lot of people were expecting that because we were a light jet operator. But earlier in the year, we had announced that we had acquired a management company in Houston. And a lot of people wanted to sort of understand where that was. But one of the key things that we got from that acquisition was the ability to operate larger aircraft, because they had a certificate that was capable of 30 passenger jets and a lot of the infrastructure that we needed. So all of these announcements are part of a larger plan that all fits together. Our primary business is the fractional ownership. The jet cards that we announce bring demand to our flying, which is important to our fractional owners, because one of the unique aspects of our program is that we offer a revenue share to all of our owners. And so whenever the plane is available for additional demand, whether that be charter or jet card, we seek to keep the plane working. And as we have these other demand products that we can put on it, that increases the number of revenue hours that we have in our fleet. And of course, it increases the revenue hours that we share with our customers.
Very cool. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. If somebody wants to find out more about Volato, where can they find out more?
Well, of course, we're on social media like everybody else. Our website, flyvolato.com. And you're welcome to give us a call. People are standing by to tell you about what we do and convince you that you should join us in our efforts of revolutionizing light jet travel.
Matt, thanks so much, and congratulations on the aircraft order and the next time that you have one, which I'm sure, based on your track record of announcements of new products, is not going to be far around the corner.
All right. Thank you very much. You have a good day.
Thanks, Matt. All right. We will be right back on BusinessAir TV.
Aviation Air Group is pleased to bring to market this 2017 Bombardier Challenger 650. With a very low-time airframe meticulously maintained by one U.S. Fortune 50 owner, this aircraft boasts the qualities and freshness of a brand new jet. This Challenger delivers the widest cabin, stand-up headroom, and the highest comfort level available in its class. This This pristine and turnkey Challenger will provide immense versatility no matter your mission. Now, sit back and relax as we present to you this stunning Challenger 650.
Yeah, earlier in the show, I showed a large high-pressure area that has dominated the central and eastern U.S. and an intense upper-level trough that was aiding in significant snowfall and also even some convection in the Pacific Northwest today. And that area, that essentially that upper-level trough, is expected to move further east with time. It looks like it's fading out a little bit, but it's going to produce a fairly strong area of weather in the upper Midwest, as well as down even into the middle Mississippi Valley for the day tomorrow. And eventually that trough does move out into the northwest or into the northeast U.S. Through the day on Saturday, bringing some weather into the northeast for that. And there's a second trough kind of coming in behind that that will allow for some weather moving in on Saturday. We look at the Storm Prediction Center's convective outlooks for the day on Saturday. We'll see that we have that most of that Friday, most of that weather is going to be moving into the lower Mississippi Valley as well as the Tennessee and Ohio valleys for the day on Friday. And then on Saturday, expect some of that weather to be in terms of convection from the Tennessee Valley all the way down into the mouth of the Mississippi and even into parts of Texas. And essentially, we're going to be looking at, from a forecast radar perspective, you'll be able to see that next weather system moving into the Pacific Northwest here. So when we look at the day on Friday, there's our weather maker for the day on Friday and into Saturday in the Pacific Northwest. So expect when you wake up in the morning, there should be a pretty strong area or line of weather right off the coastal regions there. But again, the main weather maker today will be into Friday and into Saturday will be this next frontal system that's moving through into the eastern U.S., which will make for an interesting day on Saturday morning in the northeast U.S. And that's, we'll essentially look at the ceilings below 3,000 feet as we get into tomorrow. Much of the day is going to be, for the day on Friday, will be in in Texas into parts of Oklahoma, where we'll see ceilings well below 3,000 feet in many of those areas. And then as that next weather system takes shape and we see a frontal system coming through the center part of the country, expect lower ceilings in that region, but kind of improving conditions on the backside of that in the western U.S. And for updates to the weather throughout the week, Tuesday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time, check out and subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@EasyWXBrief. Well, that's the outlook for the weekend. Back to you in the studio.
It's going to be weirdly me. Welcome back to BusinessAir TV. I'm here with Pete Bunce. Pete is the president and CEO of GAMA, General Aviation Manufacturers Association. Pete, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Preston.
Pete, I want to talk about the Q3 results that we're looking at, the report that you guys put out. Can you give us a high-level overview about what that report said?
Well, it's good news for the entire industry because basically every segment is up, and that's something that we've been looking or hoping that would happen for several years now. Obviously, different segments ebb and flow over time, but to be able to have a report where we can talk about all the segments being in a positive direction is really nice to have, especially, coming out of the pandemic and looking at where we were going into the pandemic and where we are right now. And given the constraints on the industry out there, it's really a wonderful accomplishment, and we're enthusiastic to be able to report good numbers like that.
So the report compares the Q3 numbers to a COVID economy number, and that's how some of the growth is being accounted for. How are we feeling the bullwhip of COVID in the aviation sector, and how long do you foresee that happening into the future?
Well, the dynamic within the supply chain is one big constraint on the industry, and whether we will ever get back to what we had before, I don't know. I mean, the world's different post-COVID than it was pre-COVID. We have, obviously, the war between Russia and Ukraine has really caused some upset in supply chain where we get metals, things like that, but also on things like extrusions and forging capability, things like that we source there, but also if you look worldwide, just as the overall distribution within the supply chain, you think about what over the last couple of decades, we, along with the U.S. military, everyone went to just-in-time type of maintenance where you started to shrink down the inventories that you needed to keep on site because you could just order it, and your suppliers and different places within the supply chain actually carry the inventory. And so what that allowed at the manufacturer's level, at the OEM, where final assembly happens, is you didn't have to warehouse a whole lot of parts. You didn't have to pay certain taxes on those and everything. So just in time worked very well. Well, the pandemic threw that all in a tizzy. If you could even get parts in that, there was demands placed on the overall transportation system, whether it was by ground, rail, or air. And just being able to source those were such that the competition, the number of suppliers out there shrank, and now OEMs are having to contract longer and longer lead times with suppliers, and they're having to accumulate inventory again. So that dynamic has put pressure on the entire system. And some suppliers just plain went out of business, and a lot of suppliers remember that aviation's a very tight ecosystem. So if you have a situation where the commercial airlines are very much affected, it is going to affect business and general aviation. We're all tied in this together, just like we are tied in with the insurance industry. So aviation is not as big as other transportation sectors such as the auto industry and that. So when you do have perturbations in one part, it does have an overall effect on the entire ecosystem.
So as we talk about pricing and how that affects price, as inventory levels, your cost of goods sold go up, supply chain and transportation has gone up, but a lot of these manufacturers are taking deposits contracted maybe a year and a half in advance. I know that there are multiple airframe manufacturers that are selling positions 2 years into the future, locked in at a price point, and then the margins erode underneath them. Are we going to continue to see increased in pricing, or is there ever going to be relief and make general aviation specifically more approachable in the new market?
Well, I think prices, several factors go into the price of our products, whether it's the supply chain piece, whether it's the cost of our labor. We're in a great competition for labor right now with other industries. And, a lot of attention gets paid to producing enough pilots for our industry, but where we at GAMA are really trying to focus is looking at our engineers and technicians. And there are a lot of industries that want folks that whether they have built an expertise within our industry, and that competition for labor, depending on which market you're in, is very robust. But even when you look at the university system that produces engineers for our industry, a lot of those grads are being sucked away to other industries because aviation is just an innovative type of environment, and those are the kind of folks that they want. So you have those type of pressures. Then obviously you have material costs that are going up in conjunction with labor, but also you have costs associated with extended time to get products certified. So if the regulators, who are also having a labor shortage, also there have been a lot of repercussions with regulators on either side of the Atlantic, north and south, where delays in your certification of your vehicles, whatever one you want to pick out there, starts to build costs into what you have to eventually sell your product for, because your what we call a burn rate is such, you're paying for the engineering, you're paying for the manufacturing, and if it's a delayed because the regulators aren't able to keep up, or the regulators won't make a decision, that has a negative impact on price. So I can't tell you, I have no crystal ball out there to be able to say when that starts to stabilize. Now, obviously, our book-to-bill ratio and what we look at, it is healthy for us, back to the supply chain issue, to be able to have orders out there in the future, looking at 1-2 years of backlog, because we can make those commitments with suppliers that help us to be able to secure the inventories that we need to be able to produce those aircraft. And we're in a different position, I think, than we were in other economic times, where we had people flipping positions and things like that. We as manufacturers have gotten much smarter in being able to manage orders and everything like that. So they're more real. And I think that also helps. Everybody likes predictability and stability. That's how any kind of industry is able to thrive. So by having some good backlogs out there for all the manufacturers, that provides some stability that helps everyone.
Can you help us understand, when you look at a backlog, maybe as a financial analyst or somebody considering a company, is the more important number the total volume? We have looked at a lot of reports over the past few weeks, Bombardier, Textron, Embraer, having these backlogs, and the dollar amount fluctuates. How do you analyze what that dollar amount on backlogs actually means for the health of the company?
Well, again, there are so many factors that are coming into this. If you say you're going to deliver an airplane 2 years from now, but you don't know what inflation is going to do in the next 12 months to 24 months, you don't know the cost of labor. It is you're trying to take in all of these factors, and we pay a lot of people, our companies pay a lot of people to make forecasts and be able to predict. And we at GAMA, we're much more, we report what's happened. We try to explain the market dynamics and everything. But I'm a pilot. I am not a economist or forecaster, but I know that with all of that comes into play, and also, you have variables like insurance rates. We all know that insurance rates, if you're a pilot, you definitely know that, but that also happens to manufacturers, that our insurance rates for liability and everything have been rising very steeply. So that has an impact. So it's very hard to be able to predict, looking 2.5 years out, what the bottom line profitability is going to be ultimately in any real finite sense.
So it's been said that when the economy sneezes, that aviation catches the flu. I don't think that you can argue anymore that we're in a recession. I think all the technical signs are there. Some people are saying that we're going to bounce back Q1 or Q2 of next year. Others are saying it's much worse. What are you hearing from some of the members of your organization, how they're projecting for next year or 2 years from now? Talk top line, inflation, things like that. Are they saying anything to you?
Well, everyone is obviously watching it very closely. Everyone's concerned about a recession. Having backlogs as healthy as we have right now will hopefully allow us to manage through a recession if it's not too long and too deep. The other dynamic in the marketplace that is very interesting is all the new entrants within the marketplace. So for what a very great number of reasons, we have a lot of new people, first-time buyers into aviation that are now figuring out how much utility they can get out of these aircraft, and the reliability vis-a-vis going commercially and ending up having flights canceled and not an opportunity to get where you need to go at the time you need to be there. And obviously we're hoping our airline brethren can get out of the challenges that they're facing as well, because again, we're all in this together. We want a healthy ecosystem, but there's no doubt about it that what people have experienced traveling has stimulated more interest in business and general aviation, which is only good for our GA industry, and I think it's very well reflected in the numbers. And then you add to that, on the lighter end, the demand for training. And that is only going to accelerate. So if you look at this new part of advanced air mobility, in most of these aircraft, they are going to require a pilot with not only a private pilot's license, but a commercial rating to be able to go and fly that. So that's going to increase demand. Ultimately, it'll help the supply of pilots that eventually go to the airlines, because they'll be able to cut their teeth in that and be able to fly in the system with these vehicles. But we have a whole bunch of elements that are entering into the situation they're facing right now. But I think it just makes this time so exciting in aviation with all of this new technology, and that if we can just, again, work the supply chain issues, work the workforce issues, but in particular, try to get the regulators to a position where they can get back to being able to make decisions, to be able to support the industry. And every time that we produce a new product, whether it's a new aircraft or whether it's new avionics, new engines in that, the cycle within business and general aviation is much faster than on the commercial side. So you want the regulators to be able to certify that product, because it improves safety and it improves efficiency, which helps with our environmental sustainability commitments. If that's slowed down, it just hurts the whole system. And so we've got big challenges with our regulators, again, on either side of the Atlantic, to be able to do what we expect them to do, which is get through the certification process efficiently.
Pete, this has been super helpful. Thank you so much. And we will be sure to have you on after we get the results from Q4 and hear more about what the future of aviation looks like. Thanks for being with us, Pete.
Thanks, Preston. Enjoyed it.
Time to take a look one last time at those headlines from flyingmag.com. Again, we just heard from Pete Bunce. 1,841 aircraft so far this year, representing an increase in deliveries across all segments, according to the General Aviation Manufacturers Association third quarter shipping and billing report. The delivery trend also points to increase in the overall value of the aircraft segments, the association said in a statement. And next up, in a letter to HondaJet owners, the JetIt Fractional Program CEO Glenn Gonzalez says that HondaJet has cost them tens of millions of dollars caused by AOG and maintenance issues. A new FAA ruling now requires commercial hot air balloon pilots to hold at least a second-class medical certificate when flying paying passengers, bringing balloons in line with commercial airplanes and helicopters. You can find all those headlines and more by heading to flyingmag.com, and while you're there, be sure to subscribe to all of the different newsletters, the BusinessAir newsletter, the Flying Daily newsletter. We've got a lot of great options for you, and I appreciate it. And if you want to take a look at Flying Magazine on social media, find us at Flying Magazine on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, all of those. And next week, we will be rejoined by Kaylee in the studio. She is out today, so I will have my co-host back with me next week. Programming update, just as a reminder, we will be at 1:00 p.m. on Thursdays every week. You're going to be able to get your latest business aviation news, what's going on in the business of aviation. We will see you next week here from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
FreightWaves is the #1 source for transportation and logistics news. FreightWaves.com provides you with in-depth news coverage, data, and insights from the leading industry journalists and market experts. On FreightWaves.com, you can also watch the only streaming TV network dedicated to freight. FreightWaves TV provides you with coverage you won't find anywhere else. However you like your news delivered, check us out online or on the FreightWaves app.
Welcome back to another edition of Check Call. Check Call. Check Call. Check Call. Let's go. Nobody works for free, so why should we be expecting our drivers to? Okay, let's just get it together now. What are some of those proactive steps that you can start taking now? For myself, I would like the Earth to still be here for a little bit longer, but you know, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Oh, okay. Is pizza an open-faced sandwich? It's bread.
I have been ready for this question. I've seen the show.
We're all in this together.
Thanks for making me hungry. Now I want a hot dog.
You're welcome. Catch episode.
Welcome back to another episode of With Sonar. It's Wednesday. It's the last day of the month. We finished Thanksgiving. We're headed into the end of the year here, and we've got a lot to discuss today. We've got falling fuel prices. We've got freight costs that are hitting new lows, especially on the ocean side. All that we'll discuss later, as well as where do we head next from here. But first, we've got Tony. Glad to have you here as always on the end. And then Tanner, good to have you back after a little break from last week.
Absolutely.
What did you guys do for Thanksgiving, by the way? Any highlights?
Not really. I was with family.
So you guys missed it before the show. We were talking, and Tony was a little upset that they didn't have mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving this year, which, you know, that's
well, if you would have
not that great.
If you would have watched Freight Waves now, you would have known that is my favorite side dish at Thanksgiving, and it was the only one that we did not have that would have topped on that list of favorites.
You didn't bring it? Did you bring a side this year?
No, and I asked and was told no. So you don't need to bring anything. And I showed up. I said, "Where are the mashed potatoes?" We don't have any. So
I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't get
little upset, but it's
maybe we'll make some mashed potatoes for you.
Hey, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, fill his void.
Wrapped around the stromboli. No, but it's exciting. We got a lot to talk about today. First off, folks, last day of the month. We're past holiday. We've got Christmas and New Year's here to finish out the year. We saw Tony. Give us the breakdown of Black Friday, weekend, like what we saw there.
Yeah, I mean, if you start looking at some of that initial data, I mean, sales were relatively strong. I mean, you're talking up 2% year over year. So I mean, a little growth. I mean, not as much. I mean, about what people expected to see, at least on that initial front. I think one of the interesting things that we've seen was out of Adobe Analytics, right? They have all the access to store, like they're pulling all this data. And one of the interesting ones was a 78% year over year increase in buy now, pay later. So, I mean, to me, it's, are we pulling demand forward, right? And it's going to cause the brakes to really get hit after the holiday passes, right? When the bills start coming up for this, like, is that going to be what's headed? And I think what's interesting, if you look in the freight market, the reaction to the holiday was darn near nothing. I mean, there was a little bump up in spot rates, but they're basically where they were in October. So, I mean, it wasn't like a big movement. Rejection rates came up a little. Again, they're already headed back down. Volumes, if you connect the two, take out that 0 day, they're still on the way down. So, I mean, it's just everything all together is, on the freight side, not really impactful, or the holiday really wasn't impactful in any way. Growth was, again, moderate. I mean, it wasn't crazy growth, but you're seeing growth in things that are slightly concerning. I don't want to say they're a major concern yet, but seeing a 78% growth in buy now, pay later is a little concerning.
Yeah, with the Black Friday numbers, I'd be interested to see the actual number of sales, right? Because with the 2.5% increase year over year, but also inflation is 7, 8, 9%. So is it that things have just gotten more expensive and there's less people actually buying things, or is it truly that we've seen growth? So it's going to be quite interesting. And I mean, I was at Best Buy on Black Friday. I was at Costco on Saturday, and those shelves were full, guys. There was a lot of things that were left on the shelves.
Yeah, and I was at Target on Black Friday, and I was like, this is